Hello everyone, welcome in. The wild card round of the 2025 through 26 NFL playoffs has concluded. We are on to the divisional round, and today I will do similar to what I did last week. I will preview each divisional round game, give 5 predictions, including who I think is going to win and by how much, as well as my predictions for the rest of the playoff bracket from today. But before we get into that, let's recap my predictions from last week. The first game on Saturday, Rams at Panthers. I predicted the Rams would turn the ball over 0 times. They did not. They turned it over once. I predicted the Rams would rush for over 126 yards. They did not. I predicted that the Panthers would pass for over 179 yards. They did. I predicted the Panthers would not be able to run the ball. I predicted they would rush for under 110 yards. I predicted the Rams would win the game handily. They did not. They were inches from losing that game. The second game Saturday, I predicted the Packers would rush for over 120 yards. They did not. They could not run the ball. I predicted the Bears would force at least 1 turnover. They did have a big comeback, but weirdly, this time it did not involve forcing a turnover. I predicted that the Bears would have over 312 yards of offense. They went well over that. I predicted the Bears would have under 225 passing yards. They went well over 225 passing yards. I predicted the Bears would win this game. They did by a higher score than I anticipated. For the Bills-Jaguars game, I got all 5 predictions correct. I predicted that the Bills would need to move the ball through the air over 127 passing yards. They did. I predicted that the Bills would go well under their season average of rushing yards. They did not get to 160 rushing yards. I don't even think they got to half of 160 rushing yards. I predicted the Jaguars would have one of their better games running the ball. They did. They ran for over 115 yards. I predicted the Bills would win the turnover battle, which they did 2-1 because they did fumble that one kickoff, but they picked off Trevor Lawrence twice. And I picked that the Bills, this line actually moved on Friday. The Bills became the underdogs, but they still ended up covering and winning by the exact score that I predicted. 49ers at Eagles. I predicted the 49ers would have under 314 yards of offense. They went well over that. I predicted that the Eagles would force at least 2 turnovers, which they did. They intercepted Brock Purdy twice, but that was not enough. I predicted that the Eagles would pass for under 194 yards. They did. I predicted that the Eagles would be able to run the ball on the 49ers, and they did. They went over 117 rushing yards. I thought the Eagles would win this game handily, and they lost outright. Chargers at Patriots. I predicted that the Chargers would be able to run the ball on the Patriots. They could not. They could not move the ball on the Patriots in any way. I thought that the Patriots would get at least 2 turnovers. They got 1. Amazingly, they held the Chargers to 3 points with only 1 takeaway. I thought the Chargers would give up more than their season average in passing yards, which is 180. They did. I predicted that the Patriots would not be able to run the ball, that they would rush for under 105 yards. They did not. They went over that. I thought that the Patriots would win this game by more than a field goal. I had them winning by 7. They won by 13, so I was correct there. Oops, sorry about this. For the Texans-Steelers game, I thought that the Texans would have one of their best games of the year passing the ball. They did. They went over 218 passing yards. I predicted that the Steelers would force at least 2 turnovers, which they did. I thought that the Steelers could rush for over 94 yards against the Texans. They didn't even come close to that. They could not move the ball at all. I predicted that the Steelers would have under 185 yards passing, which they easily did. I thought the Steelers would win this game outright, and they got absolutely destroyed, 30-6. So I was dead wrong on the winner of this game. Overall, on winners, I went 4-2 this week, 3-3 against the spread. So the first game of the divisional playoff weekend is the number 6 seeded Buffalo Bills, coming off a 27-24 win in Jacksonville last week against the number 1 seeded Denver Broncos, who are, of course, coming off a bye. This is a rematch of one of the wild card round games last year. It was in Buffalo with a number 2 seeded Bills team hosting a number 7 seeded Broncos team. That game was not close. The Bills won 31-7. They ran all over the Broncos defense. But last year, the Bills were coming off a de facto bye going into that game since they had rested pretty much all their starters the previous week against the Patriots, and the Broncos needed to win the previous week to get in the playoffs. This time the Broncos have a week of rest, and the Bills are actually coming in on a short week. So I anticipate this game, not going to try to spoil too much, but I anticipate this being a closer game than the wild card game last year. So first, the Bills offense against the Broncos defense. My first prediction is that the Bills are going to go over their season average in rushing yards. I think the Bills are, again, going to be able to run on the Broncos defense. They were not able to run at all against the Jaguars defense last week, but that Jaguars defensive front, I think, presents a much greater challenge for the Bills' rushing offense than Denver's. Respectfully, the Jaguars' defensive front is very big. They have a lot of length. Comparatively, the Broncos' defensive front is small, better at rushing the passer than stopping the run. Of course, the Bills ran all over the Broncos in the playoffs last year. I don't know if they're going to have as many rushing yards in this game as they did last year in the playoffs, but I anticipate the Bills being able to run the ball on the Broncos defense again. My next prediction, the Bills have averaged 219 passing yards per game this season. I think they go under that. Last week against Jacksonville, they lost 2 wide receivers for the year to torn ACLs, Gabriel Davis, and as of a couple hours ago, Tyrell Shavers. I think the Bills are going to lean on the run game, which means I don't think they're going to be able to throw the ball through the air a whole lot, although I do think the production they will have through the air will come to tight ends and running backs, which is similar to what they did in the wild card round last year. But I don't anticipate them being able to have much of any production on the outside, especially against Patrick Surtain and Riley Moss. So on to the other side of the ball, the Bills' defense against the Broncos' offense. The Bills' pass defense is much better than their run defense. The Bills' run defense has been one of the worst in the NFL all year. However, I think that this game is a bit of a tendency breaker because I think that the Bills, who have given up an average of 160 passing yards per game this year, I think the Broncos go over that. Part of this is because I do not think the Broncos' run game since J.K. Dobbins got injured has been really ineffective. And the Broncos' offensive line, specifically their pass protection, is among the best in the NFL. I don't think the Bills' pass rush is very good, and I think Bo Nix is going to have some time to throw the ball in this game. So I do think the Broncos are going to be able to move the ball through the air on the Bills' defense. However, I anticipate that the Bills will get at least 1 interception off Bo Nix. Bo Nix has struggled this year against zone defense. Sean McDermott has really varied the Bills' coverage schemes up a lot this year. They've confused a lot of quarterbacks. I think that this Bills passing defense, with their varied coverage schemes and their zone coverage, is a very tough matchup for Bo Nix. So while I anticipate the Broncos being able to move the ball through the air, I do also think the Bills will get at least 1 interception in this game. Lastly, the Bills are 1.5-point underdogs in this game. Although they are a little bit banged up and it is a short week, I do think the Bills go to their 3rd AFC Championship game in 6 seasons. I think they cover the 1.5. I think they win this game 28-24. So the next game on Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox, an NFC West rivalry game, San Francisco at Seattle. These teams met twice in the regular season. They met in Week 1 in Seattle in a game that the 49ers won 17-10. And they met in Week 18 in San Francisco in a game that the Seahawks won 13-3, and that defense really dominated the day. They also met in the wild card round of the playoffs a few years ago, although this Seahawks team is much different than they were back then. But the 49ers won that game handily. It was in San Francisco, 41-23. But obviously this is a much different matchup than that one. So my first prediction for the 49ers offense versus the Seahawks defense, the 49ers have averaged 105 rushing yards per game this season. I think they go under that. The Seahawks have, for my money, the best rush defense in the NFL. They are first in EPA per rush allowed. They are first in lowest yards per rush allowed. They do not give up yards on the ground. The 49ers have not been able to run the ball with any consistency this year, and I do not anticipate them being able to run the ball in this game. My next prediction, Brock Purdy, although he played well in the win last week against the Eagles, he had a couple of interceptions, had 2 of them, and this game is in Seattle. It's going to be very hard for the 49ers offense communication-wise. I think that the Seahawks can get an interception off Brock Purdy or 2, maybe force a fumble because that pass rush is really good as well. To the other side of the ball, with the Seahawks offense versus the 49ers defense, my first prediction, the Seahawks rushing offense has not been very good this year. It's probably the weak link of the team. They are 21st in EPA per rush this season, 23rd in yards per rush. I don't anticipate them being able to run the ball very well in this game. I'm going to say they go under 123 rushing yards, which is what the 49ers have given up on average this year, 123 rushing yards per game. My other prediction for the Seahawks offense versus the 49ers defense, I think the Seahawks pass for over 228 yards. The 49ers, I believe the Seahawks are averaging 228 passing yards per game this season. I think they go well over that. The Seahawks passing offense is one of the best in the NFL. They rank 8th in the NFL in EPA per pass, 2nd in yards per pass attempt. I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball on the ground in this game, so by proxy, I think they move the ball through the air against a very banged-up 49ers defense. And lastly, who do I think wins this game? I didn't give the 49ers much of a chance last week against Philadelphia, and I give them massive credit for pulling off that win and that upset. I was dead wrong on that game. But I just think the Seahawks at this point are a much better team than the 49ers. They were a much better team a few weeks ago in San Francisco. I think the 49ers were pretty lucky that game was as close as it was. The Seahawks missed several opportunities in the red zone. I think this is a higher scoring game than the one a few weeks ago and the one in week 1. The Seahawks are 7-point favorites at home. I think they cover that. I think they win 31-21 and advance to the NFC Championship game for the first time in 11 years. So the first game on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern is Texans at Patriots. This game is on ESPN and ABC. Not often that they get Sunday games or Sunday playoff games. The Texans are coming off a 30-6 win against the Steelers in a game that they absolutely dominated, and their defense absolutely dominated, as they have pretty much the entire season. Meanwhile, the Patriots are coming off a pretty ugly yet convincing 16-3 win at home against the LA Chargers on Sunday night. This is a short week for the Texans because they played on Monday night, and this game is obviously in New England, outdoors in the cold, which benefits the Patriots. So, my first prediction for the Texans offense against the Patriots defense. One second. I think that the Patriots are going to force at least one turnover in this game. The Texans, although they won very convincingly at Pittsburgh last week, C.J. Stroud had a very bad game. And C.J. Stroud, not just this year, but in his 3-year career, has not been nearly as good on the road as he's been at home. He's never been good on the road in the playoffs. I think that the Patriots, even though they haven't forced a lot of turnovers this year, I think they will be able to force at least one turnover in this game. My second prediction for the Texans offense against the Patriots defense, is I think the Texans are going to go over their season average in rushing yards. They've averaged 112 rushing yards per game this year. I think they go over that. The Texans have been very poor at running the ball this year. However, their run game has been better of late. Woody Marks had his first career 100-yard game last week against the Steelers, and while I don't think Marks will be able to get 100 yards by himself, I do think the Texans as a team will have one of their better games running the ball this week. I know the Patriots defense completely shut down the Chargers, but that Chargers offense, Justin Herbert is one of the worst playoff quarterbacks I've ever seen, behind one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen. So I don't anticipate the Patriots easily holding teams to 3 points for the rest of the playoffs. So on the other side of the ball, the Patriots offense against the Texans defense is strength on strength, particularly the Patriots passing offense, which is first in EPA per pass and first in yards per pass, against the Texans pass defense, which is first in EPA allowed per pass and fifth lowest yards allowed per pass. Who do I think wins that battle? I think the Texans win it. The Patriots have had one game this year where they had under 200 yards passing. It was against the Bills at home in Week 15, another really good pass defense. I think the Patriots, for the second time this year, go under 200 yards passing. They really couldn't move the ball for most of that game against the Chargers. That's a good Chargers defense. This Texans defense is even better. I think offense is going to be really hard to come by. However, I do not think the Patriots offense is going to get completely shut out because I think the Patriots are going to struggle to move the ball through the air. I think they're going to be able to run the ball for over 92 rushing yards, which is what the Texans have allowed on average this season. Travion Henderson has been really good the back half of the season. The Texans' defensive front is a lot better rushing the passer than defending the run, and I think a good portion of the Patriots' offensive production in this game will come on the ground. And lastly, who do I think wins this game? The Patriots are field goal favorites at home. As I said, I think offense is going to be really hard to come by in this game. I think it's going to be a rock fight. I think there are probably multiple turnovers on both sides, honestly. Weather could play a factor. The Houston Texans have never been to the AFC Championship game in their franchise history. They are 0-6 in the divisional round, all 6 losses on the road, and I believe 2 of them to the Patriots in New England. So this is their 3rd ever divisional round game in New England. The first one was back in 2012 in a game that they lost 41-28. I don't think this game's going to have nearly that many points. And also in 2016 in a game that the Patriots also dominated 34-16 again. I don't think that this game's going to have nearly that many points. But I am going to pick New England to win a close game. It's going to be low scoring. Patriots 20, Texans 17. That Texans defense is awesome, but I just don't trust their offense enough in this game. And the final game on Sunday of the divisional round is the LA Rams at the Chicago Bears. This game is at 6:30 Eastern on NBC. The Rams are coming off a really ugly win last week against the Panthers, 34-31. I thought they would win that game easily, and they very easily could have lost it. They were trailing with under a minute to go, but Matthew Stafford pulled it out of the fire, even though a lot of things went wrong for the Rams in that game. Conversely, the Bears were down 21-3 at halftime last week against the Packers at home. They came back to win it 31-27. So first, the Rams offense against the Bears defense. The Bears defense is mostly built on getting takeaways and playing better in the second half. But the Rams offense is arguably the best offense in the league. In aggregate, they're second in EPA per play, second in yards per play. The Bears defense, conversely, 21st in EPA per play, 29th most yards per play allowed. So I think that the Rams are going to have one of their best games of the year on offense. They're averaging 396 yards of offense per game this year. I think they go well over that. I think, essentially, every drive for the Rams is either going to be points or turnover. On that, I think the Bears force at least one turnover. This Rams offense has been mistake-prone. The Bears defense has, again, been built on getting turnovers. That's how they're able to stay in these games and come back and win them. I think that they're going to need to force at least one turnover to keep this game close. On the other side of the ball with the Bears offense against the Rams defense, the Bears have averaged 143 rushing yards per game this year. I think they go over that. I think this Rams run defense can be had. They gave up a lot of rushing yards against the Seahawks. The Falcons rushed for over 200 yards against the Rams. This Bears rushing offense is very good. They are 6th this season in EPA per rush and 3rd in yards per rush. I think that the Bears will be able to run the ball in this game, so put me down for over 143 rushing yards for the Bears. My other prediction, I think because the Bears are going to be able to run the ball, they're not going to pass the ball as much, and for that reason, I think they go under 219 yards passing, which is what they have averaged this year. And then lastly, who do I think wins this game? The Bears have been really good at home this year. They have 2 losses at home. One was in Week 1 against the Vikings in a game a long time ago, and then the other was in Week 18 against the Lions. But they have been playing dangerously, falling behind a lot. I think that they will fall behind again in this game, and they will come back, but I think ultimately, if the Rams need to have it because they have Matthew Stafford in the 4th quarter, they will. I think this game has a lot of points. I think the Rams, though, are going to win it. They are 3.5-point favorites on the road. I think the Bears cover. I think this is a field goal game. I'm going to go Rams 30, Bears 27, and the Rams will go to the NFC Championship game for the 3rd time under Sean McVay. So to recap my predictions for the divisional playoff round, I think that the Seahawks handle the 49ers at home, coming off a bye. I think that the Rams win a thriller in Chicago. That will set up the NFC Championship game to be Rams at Seahawks in Seattle. On the other side of the bracket, I like the Bills to upset the Broncos on the road as the 6th seed. I think the Patriots win a rock fight at home against the Texans. And then for the conference championship games, I think the Rams beat the Seahawks in the 3rd meeting. They split the regular season games. They were decided by a net of 1 point. The Rams won the first game in LA by 2. The Seahawks won the 2nd meeting in Seattle by 1. I think the Rams would win a close game. On the other side of the bracket, Bills at Patriots. That's the AFC Championship game I had last week, and I still do like the Bills in this matchup. And that gives us the same Super Bowl that I had a week ago with the Rams at the Bills, and I still like the Rams in this Super Bowl, despite how they looked against the Panthers. And that will be all for today. Thank you again for tuning in. Again, I will do another video like this for the conference championship games next week, and I will do a video predicting who wins the Super Bowl when that week comes around. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.